Hello, hello, good afternoon. It has been a very long time since I have gone live on Instagram, but I'm so excited to have the honor to speak to some friends from an organization that I have so much admiration for, which is Corona Rising. So I am just waiting for my friends here to hop on. And what we're going to be talking about today is a really exciting launch of a resource that they have created for parents. And I'll let them talk more about this. But for a little bit of background, I first became familiar. Let me bop them in here. Should have one person joining. It just takes a second. You all know how lives go. It's like, there we go. Hi.
How you doing today?
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining.
Go ahead. You can continue. I didn't want to interrupt nothing.
Thank you so much. You're not interrupting at all. And I think that we have Andrea joining as well. She should pop on. There we go. Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
So good to see you. I am so excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for the opportunity just to speak with you about this resource that I am so excited for. I'll give a tiny bit of background for those who are watching about what this conversation is and why I'm excited about it, and then I'll let Ashley and Andrea introduce themselves as well. All right, so I got another request, just want to join, but I don't know who it is, so I'm not gonna have them go live with us. So I was first introduced to Corona Rising a couple of years ago. I met Fecha, who is not on this call, but I met her at an event. And I was really excited about this particular nonprofit because it is survivor-led, which was really unique to me. So I'll let Ashley and Andrea speak more about what all they do with Corona Rising. But around the topic of human trafficking, there's so much information out there. And I feel like nowadays there's a lot of misinformation out there too, and a lot of conspiracy theories that get really distracting from maybe what the real issue is and what the real concerns are. And so I'm just honored to have an organization to turn to and women who can speak with real experience to what the problem is and what the solution is. So I'll stop talking for a minute and let both of you introduce yourselves. So Ashley, since you joined first, so I'll let you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Lowe, and I'm a survivor and advocate at Corona Rising. I do a lot of things with Corona Rising. I do blogs, little trainings on human trafficking and things in that nature, and a lot of more other things as well, and as well as with the parent guide. Andrea?
Thanks, Ashley. Ellie, thank you so much for making the time today. We just truly appreciate your spirit, your energy, and what you bring to the conversation. So I'm one of the co-founders and the executive director of Corona Rising. Corona actually means dear one in Latin. And our community of survivors at Corona Rising aim to take our collective past to create a better future for those who are vulnerable and those who've experienced exploitation and trafficking themselves. And I really appreciated, Ellie, you bringing up the topic of misinformation, because it's not just about misinformation that might lead a parent to not really seeing the warning signs. It actually impacts survivors who are being seen by law enforcement or courts, where that person doesn't fit the stereotype, what I think a trafficking victim should look like. And so part of today we'll unpack a little bit about what it means to have, biases associated with trafficking. And just as a little bit of humor, there was a book published in 1910. I actually have a copy. And in it, they talk to girls and say, girls, don't go to ice cream stands and take ice cream from strange men. Make sure that you stay home. Don't go to the ice cream parlors. And I thought, like, scary tactic, like that was 1910. Or in 2021, and we're still having that sort of scare tactic approach, when in reality, trafficking is much more nuanced. And so that's why I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah, you have such a wealth of information to provide. And I was amazed to hear that, is it over 2,000 survivors? Is that the number that you've been able to reach through Corona Rising?
Through Corona Rising and through my first nonprofit, Fair Girls. And honestly, probably more that I didn't understand were being exploited as well. Done a lot schools and state orphanages as well.
That's absolutely incredible. Thank you for that work. And with that backdrop of the work that you've been doing, why do you think it's important for parents to be paying attention, to be speaking to their kids about trafficking? And kind of to back up, just for anyone who is really new to this conversation, how would you define quickly what we're talking about, what human trafficking is in this conversation?
Sure. So let's start with the definition, just really basic. The federal definition is super long. Everybody would fall asleep. So what I'm going to say is trafficking is really around two things. One is it's about vulnerabilities, those risk factors, experiencing homelessness, isolation, bullying at school, lack of support at home, prior abuse, domestic violence, all of those vulnerabilities. And when you're talking about, those who are trying to come here from other countries, or even kids from rural communities coming to the city, there's a lot of those vulnerabilities. Traffickers want to exploit, that's the other part, those vulnerabilities for their own profit. And so that's the basics. You have labor trafficking, that's any type of service, any type of labor, in a factory, working in a restaurant, working on an agriculture farm. Here in California, where I am, the strawberry fields are unfortunately covered in a history of exploitation and abuse. On the other side, you have commercial sex. So anyone who is induced to commit a commercial sex act, not exclusively pornography. We're seeing a lot more online camming, and we'll talk more about that, and sexualized images. But anyone who's an adult has to prove that they're forced, tricked, or threatened, just like someone who's saying that they've been exploited through labor trafficking. However, if you're a child and you're under 18, the federal law states you don't have to prove that someone forced or tricked or threatened you into sex trafficking. Just by the fact that you're a child, you are a victim. Unfortunately, a lot of states still arrest victims, but we might put that now. But that is important for people to note, that not every state follows the federal law. So why do parents need to know the landscape of who's being exploited, how they're being exploited? Kids are being exploited online. We're seeing, teenagers who are being exploited because of false modeling contracts through like Instagram, unpack, those types of things. And parents need to know that it's okay to lean into this issue, because you're not going to put your kid more at risk by learning. You're actually going to create a powerful, sense of agency and trust with your child, or with the child that you're connected to.
Yeah, I'm sure it's never a fun conversation to have, but so much.
It's not. At the same time, like I have a little girl who's 7, and she knows a lot about what I do in an age appropriate way, which is totally the target demo here. She's very adamant about risk factors. Like the other day we were walking, she saw a homeless woman, and she's like, "Mommy, do you think she's also a victim of trafficking?" Well, what do you think? Why do you think that? She's like, "Well, she's on the street, everybody can see her." And she reaches in her bag, and before I can stop her, runs over and hands her peanut butter sandwich, and then runs back. And she's like, "One less." It's like, it was sweet and innocent, and obviously not the perfect solution, but you can see kids want to be active, and they see they want to model that behavior.
That's incredible. That's so sweet. And jumping over to Ashley, so you are a survivor leader and advocacy advocate at Corona Rising. What about your personal experience has led you to think that every parent, no matter the demographic, needs to be involved in talking to their children about this?
Well, being a mother myself of 4, I feel like a lot of things that I wish that I known before I became a victim of exploitation and human trafficking is a lot of specific conversations that should have been held with me. I feel like I feel like what kind of, would have bring awareness to myself, and I kind of feel like I wouldn't be subjected to be vulnerable to a lot of things that I experienced. Like I was never really talked to about like the birds and the bees, good touch, bad touch. Of course, don't talk to strangers, but, and not to down my parents or nothing like that, but maybe to them, they felt like it wasn't important or age appropriate for them to discuss these things with me. But we live in a generation where a lot of things are advanced. I'm about to be 27. I don't remember half of the things that my kids do now. Like, I don't remember having an iPad or getting on, your tablet, your phone. We went outside and we played.
Right.
So I think it's very important now to have a lot of conversations with your kids pertaining to, and it doesn't have to necessarily be going to depth with things, but like the little things, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like I mentioned, good touch, bad touch, or, you know, when you're in a public place, because I've seen and I've read a lot of, you know, kids getting stolen, you know, because they're in the grocery store and their parents are walking behind and their kids are behind them, but they look behind them and all of a sudden their child's gone. You know, like little things like that. Me, I mean, I have a 10-year-old, I have a 5-year old, I have a 3-year old, and I have a 1-year old. And my 5 and my 10-year old, you know, we kind of, it's not saying that I don't sugarcoat, but everybody's parenting is different. Everybody explains things different. Like I said, being as though this generation to me, honestly, is more advanced than when I grew up. So I feel like the comprehension of a lot is a little bit different and understandable for my children. But it all depends
Mm-hmm.
on your parenting and what you feel like is appropriate and what's not appropriate.
I love that perspective of also just leaving room for different parenting styles, knowing your own kids,
Right.
but absolutely agree. They have access to so much. I mean, my little girl, she's only 11 months old, so we're not having any conversations yet about anything. She's just dabbling. But it is incredible just already thinking ahead about, like you said, the access to technology, which also means access to the entire world and to
Right.
everyone in the world that she could ever want to talk to. It's exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
It
Um,
is.
with that, Andrea, what would you say parents could do to prepare themselves ahead of time? Like, I'm thinking this conversation is a ways out for me, but things that parents can be doing to prepare to talk to their kids about this.
Well, that is such a good question. And this is some of my favorite parts of what we developed with our curriculum Free to Be with our partners at Freedom Forward. Because I think there's, again, people get nervous, get scared. So, you know, some couple of don'ts, like, you know, if you're like running into your kid's room at, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning, like, we will now talk about trafficking. Like, have the best impact. Such, and on the other side, though, if you're like, I need to tell you about something, then that might also not have a result because going to model
Right.
your behavior. And so think about this as a journey with your child. You don't know everything about trafficking, neither do I. It's okay to say, this is what we're going to talk about. This is what I'm learning about. I'd like to learn together with you so that not only are we going to help keep you safer, but we're also going to help keep your friends safer, and we're going to create a safer community. And just remembering that kids are resilient, and you can find a time that works for both of you. Like, I wanted to talk to my daughter about, you know, modern day slavery and white privilege the other day. Well, I planned to do it on a Tuesday, but for some reason she became fixated with rabbits, and there was nothing I could do about it because she's 7. So I just was like, you know what? We'll circle back when you're in a open-minded space. And so finding that time, you know, you want to make it happen. I say don't wait too long, but be compassionate that everyone has their moods. Ask their kids when they're ready. Kids, they'll tell you the truth. Some silly tips, but they totally work. I've worked with a lot of teenagers. Music, let them pick the music. Let them pick out a snack. Get some art supply so they can draw what they're,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll get them active and get them thinking. And also, this is kind of funny, but kids like to have power and attention. So you're already
Mm-hmm.
getting attention, talking about the issue. You got it, golden. But if you give them little choices about how the conversation is going to play out, then they're going to feel trusted and they're going to feel like they're on this journey with you. And also just keeping in mind that human trafficking is rooted in those vulnerabilities, like we talked about. And it, you know, there's a lot of bias that we'll walk into. So lean into those, unpack them, you know, and our curriculum can give you some tips on things to think about. For example, why is it that 90% of the survivors we've interacted with are girls of color?
Mm-hmm.
Communities, you know, why is it that trafficking victims still get arrested? If I was talking to an older child like 11, I might have that
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So there's the unpacking of those bias and asking those questions. Those are some of the things that I think are really important. And just remember, if you aren't feeling quite ready yet, chill, go read the curriculum again or take a bubble bath, whatever you've got to do to get yourself in a good mindset. And you don't have to have the whole conversation at once. In fact, I recommend not. I
Mm-hmm.
think bits and pieces and calling
And
things.
portion.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great tip. Just kind of having an introduction and
Yeah,
then leaving room for future dialogue about it, not being like, okay, we covered it, we're done talking about it. That's it.
right. There's
Keeping
something,
open door.
I don't know how to put this in like a good flow. But I'm going to put it out there because I really liked it. I read online about this dad who put a note in his daughter's lunchbox every day that if anything happens at school that makes you uncomfortable, you can always come to your dad.
Mm.
Or if she would go to summer camp, he'd put the same note in there, letting that child know, you can come to me, you can come to me. I have another little girl in my life who was playing Roblox, which we'll talk about in a future session, and she got connected to an adult. She was talking to him. He picked up on some of her lures. Here's how he did it. He knew she lost her mom. She mentioned it. And
Mm.
he was like bunnies. So you've got a Snapchat filter and put bunnies on his ears and talked about losing his mom. Luckily, I overheard the situation and was able to intervene, but she was scared I would be mad. I was like, honey, it's not your fault.
Mm.
He took advantage of some things that make you a little bit vulnerable right now, but let's talk about ways that we can protect ourselves online so that these people who exist, who aren't always great, and there's lots of them, are going to find it much harder to get to you because you're going to have the power. But if I had been like on the inside, I wanted to take her iPad, go, poof, oh, I dropped it in the toilet. The end of
Totally.
that was
Yeah.
not a good response. So it's all about like having that sense of calm.
Yeah. Those are great tips for just building that trust too, so that next time they know they're not going to feel like punished or shamed by
Right.
you if they
A
come and tell you what's
lot of
going on.
pride when things happen and it snowballs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are awesome tips.
Also
Thank
being
you for
patient. Also being patient with your children, with yourself, when approaching this topic and conversation with your children. And like
mm,
Andrea said, I definitely recommend to break it up in portions. Maybe like you guys mentioned, maybe, they'll start with the introduction. But for the parents, I feel like it is very important for you guys to do your research as well. And then read, go onto the website and see all the curriculums we have. And there, if I'm not mistaken, there are tips and things to help you have these conversations with your children. And you can freestyle it and maneuver around it, whatever you feel like you're comfortable and what works best for you and your child. Sorry guys, my horse is a little my voice is a little hoarse, so I do apologize.
no, you're good. You are good. I actually, I wanted to ask you specifically if there was anything from your experience that you wish you had known before your trafficking experience that you think could have kept you safer.
Well, one, knowing what human trafficking was, and I say this when these questions are asked, but that's number one for me.
Mm.
What human trafficking was. Um, the second thing, like I said, like I just wish that my parents would have had more conversations with me about a lot of things, and not necessarily on human trafficking, but like I mentioned earlier, certain things that I feel like now that children should really understand and know that is very important. And you know um certain things like what healthy relationships versus unhealthy relationships,
Mm-hmm.
um knowing how to identify red flags. And the reason why I went like that, because some people are like, okay, well, wait, what are red flags?
Mm-hmm.
Like Andrea mentioned, somebody that she knew, her mom being passed away, and her being vulnerable by him putting bunny ears to make her feel like, oh well, I'm here. Or they'll tell you, oh, I care. And and that's the way that they like to lure their victims in and things like that. And that's what happened to me. Um but I feel like the biggest thing that I really wish that I would have known, is one, what is human trafficking? Like I said, having them talks with my parents and them talking to me, and also that anyone can become a survivor. I mean, I would have never thought that I would have became a survivor, nor am I ashamed of being a survivor either. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was in denial a little bit about it, at first, but I kindly came around. I'm like, and Andrea knows. I'm like, no, not me. Like, not me. But and I was at 13 years old. Like, some people might love, but that's sad, But I mean, Andrea really helped me, really, understand myself and, share my story and, being that voice for others. And like I always say, that I
Mm-hmm.
wish there was somebody for me that was like me. And,
Mm-hmm.
they say that with parents, like whatever your upbringing was, you're the product of your environment, and you have to be the one to break the cycle with your kids, depending on, because I mean, my childhood was a little rough. I didn't come from a picket fence and everything was all, you know, gravy and everything was good. I mean, it just wasn't. And to each his own, everybody's story is different. Um, but I don't want that for my kids. I want to, my mom tried to do her best, and she was able to do what she could, being as though what my grandmother was able to teach her. So being
Mhm.
all the things that I experienced in growing up, and with my mother's parenting and what she tried to show me, I want to do something different for my children, so my
Mhm.
children can understand and have the tools and the knowledge, so if they are brought into a specific situation, that they know how to address it. It won't be something that's new. So that the overall thing, to answer your question, I just wish I knew a lot of the things that I know now, which of course a child's not going to know that until they experience things.
Yeah.
But I just wish that I had specific conversations with my parents about a lot of things. And like I said, not just necessarily in human trafficking, just about a lot of things that I feel like is very important to a child. Um, like I said, having those right tools, and I didn't feel like I had that, and I just kind of felt lost. Then I had to figure it out on my own. But it's
Yeah.
okay though, because now I know, and I can pass that on to my children.
Absolutely. You're breaking that cycle, which takes
Yeah,
a lot of effort.
I have
That's
to.
amazing.
Thank you.
And you have resources that you've both mentioned on this live where if anyone is watching this live or the recording of this, where can people go to access, if the parent is like, I want, I need more, I need more resources on how to do this.
Yeah, I hope that those watching will go to wepreventtrafficking.org. You can also watch this Instagram live on our page at We Are Corona Right, our partners page, Freedom Forward. But go to wepreventtrafficking.org, download the free curriculum. There's tons of it, is very survivor powered, easy and accessible and downloadable. And then share that with your friends and family. And if you have questions, drop us a note. There's a way to reach out to us there, or through, of course, direct message on Instagram. But we designed this material to be accessible. And this probably sounds strange in the context of everything, but we have games and activities and just ways to get kids and connecting with their different learning styles. So this is definitely geared toward that kind of common core of learning different skills and how to learn. But so if we prevent trafficking.org is the way to go, and then connect with us on We Are Corona Rising to get updates on the next Instagram live next Wednesday on the 14th, and really continue that conversation, because we're modeling our own suggestion, which is we're breaking the content up into short conversations week by week.
That's super smart. And I feel like we just scratched the surface into like one little portion of the conversation today. And I'm so grateful to know that there's going to be more content. So next Wednesday, the 14th,
Right?
anyone watching this, head over to at We Are Corona Rising over on Instagram to get the details of where to log on and watch that. And thank you both so much for joining today and for all the work that you're both doing. Ashley and Andrea, it was wonderful to virtually meet you. Thank you for the resources and for your time today. Such an honor.
Thank you
Oh,
for
we're
having
honored.
us.
Thank you. Thanks.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.